Thanks for joining us once again. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. We have an unusual show topic today. As you know, Tesla is heading towards $250 a share, and the news as we're on our way there has been fairly light. So we wanted to explore how, why, etc. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters. If you're going to enjoy the show and would like more information on better investing and trading, please join us on Patreon. So it's the 7th of June. It's been an eventful several days, and we wanted to sort of cover a few themes here. First, we're going to take a look at what's going on with Tesla's stock price. Next, we're going to have a conversation about Bob Lutz and Tesla's Ford interaction and how that's influential, definitely on the stock price, but on the company going forward. So the first item is that, as you may recall, if you look back 2 weeks ago, what we pointed out was that Tesla was headed to 250 a share. Most of the basis for that argument was that there are several analysts that had given it a 260 upgrade. And when that upgrade occurred, we had just had, in essence, a downgrade of the stock by sort of fast money investors who weren't happy with Tesla's earnings and revenue for last quarter. So the first thing I wanted to point out is that one of the most challenging parts of it being a good investor is looking at the different pools of capital and determining what their viewpoint is and how their process influences how they invest and how they influence the stock price of different companies. So in this case, what was interesting is that with Tesla in the 180s, maybe even 190s, the big discussion was the fact that Elon had chosen to cut prices. Now, there were a lot of narratives that could go with that, but the biggest one is the fact that initially Tesla saw a bump in sales and profit, and therefore justified the price cut. And then it became clear that competing firms had decided that they were going to eat losses rather than give up market share. And as you saw, Elon made a switch from cutting prices across the board to only cutting prices, if you will, at the bottom end on Model 3s and returning somewhat to previous pricing on Ys, Xs, and Ss. And I think that makes sense. The higher income folks can afford the more expensive vehicles, which cannot be afforded by the lower income folks. So segmenting the markets with pricing made sense. I have to say, I'm really impressed with how all that's gone. It could have ended up ugly if the big firms had all decided they would just take larger losses and keep lowering prices in an attempt to sort of wipe out Tesla's profits and further damage themselves as they spend a lot of money investing to try to be effective in the EV space. So I generally think the whole price war phenomenon has abated, and I think that's one of the good news elements for Tesla. The second element of why I believe that Tesla is having this run is Cybertruck. As you know, the Cybertruck has been delayed several times and for several years, but now we've got Steve Wesley, for example, who is a former board member who's arguing that by September they're going to start sales, and this year Cybertruck will do 25 to 40,000 sales. And then as we enter 24, he's forecasting about 250,000 vehicles being produced and sold as a Cybertruck. He further articulated that he thought that as those Cybertrucks start rolling out, the biggest victim of that is going to be Ford, which is interesting because Ford is now trying to get on Tesla's charging network and develop rapport in other ways with Tesla. So I would say that congratulations on the rising stock price. I do think it's sustainable, especially because we're adding new revenue in the form of the Cybertruck. And then soon we're going to have numbers coming on the semi-truck that's behind me as well. And so I just think that there's a lot of new revenue that hasn't been accounted for because we've seen so many delays related to this over the last few years, and those delays seem to be going away, facilitating rising stock price. The one other question I wanted to go back and forth on here is that what are the metrics that say Tesla should be stable to down versus what are the metrics say it should be stable to up? And I would say that we've got a couple of nice adds of revenue, not huge numbers, but nice adds of regular growth combined with adding Cybertruck, adding semi-truck, and then adding more charging related to all vehicles. So all those are nice adds. The other thing that's going on is that in theory, what's supposed to happen is if you have a revenue and profit number, if that number increases dramatically, that's when you get the bump in stock price. But in this case, it shows a bifurcation of the attitudes of short versus long investors. The short investors want to see those numbers to justify increasing stock price purchase. The longs are a lot more inclined to look 1, 2, 3 years out. And if you have a revenue process that walks out in that direction correctly, they can give you love or appreciation now where the short-term guys can't. So I just think it's very rare to see long-term players, if you will, winning against the short guys, because the long-term players are operating on a longer horizon and the short guys tend to be able to move more quickly in and out of the market and therefore theoretically make more money. But in this case, no, the long investors are really making their opinion of the company and stock well known, and I think it's awesome. The other thing that we don't have numbers for, but you can start to play around, is things like, oh, well, if Ford has X number of vehicles on and 10%, 20% of those vehicles choose to use Tesla chargers, what's the revenue add to Tesla? What's the profit add to Tesla? Those are the kind of questions you can ask that can justify Tesla being a higher stock price as we go forward. But in general, at this point, we've got a 260 target by several analysts, and we're at 228 now. So I just think that legitimately in the 250s would still be a discount off of what those large firms are allowed to buy up to. So do not be surprised if we get there. And I also want to note that you guys always point out when we're wrong, but you also never seem to remember when we were right about what was going to happen. So please review the show and let's give some appreciation where due, because it does take effort to understand what's going on and deliver that information rather than just parrot what everybody already knows. The next thing I wanted to cover today is my Bob Lutzian analysis. So there's something very weird going on right now, which is Ford's CEO came out. He's now arguing that their processes, they kind of don't jive very well with what Elon Musk has been doing. So we've covered this numerous times in the past, and the focus of that coverage has been, wait a second. It was decided over the last 50 or 60 years that the optimization of the automobile business was to be an assembler, not a vertically integrated company that delivers products. As you may recall, Ford had vertical integration and they got blown out by GM, so therefore Ford had to switch. The key sort of component that ended up blowing up the vertical integration of Ford 100 years ago is innovation across key components. So basically maintaining innovation at sort of state of the art for every field when you have 2,000 parts in the form of an ICE vehicle is difficult to impossible. Therefore, it hasn't been done. And in fact, by handing off R&D expenses to secondary suppliers or OEM suppliers, it's been a boon to the auto industry because it reduces the headaches of maintaining staff and you get what you want. What's the flip side of that? The flip side of that is what I call turning on the dime and optimizations if you discover something new. So how many parts are in a Tesla vehicle? 17. So yes, it's difficult, the R&D. Elon talked in one of his shows about the fact that 2 years ago, they had 32 flavors of battery or battery pack combos, each of which has to be maintained by an engineering department in terms of improvements and then distributing those improvements to those vehicles that have that configuration. So that's just one aspect. So in essence, there's a large number of industry norms for the auto business that Tesla has decided to engage in. The one other one I wanted to cover today is Bob Lutz's comment regarding Tesla's Gigafactory. As you may recall, Bob indicated that Tesla's doing a lot of things that we've found in the auto business to not work over time, and therefore they'll pay the price going forward. One of his biggest examples was that it was his argument based on industry norms that it is a bad idea to build the Gigafactory and have the cost and maintenance of that facility when all you have to do is go to Korea, sign long-term deals, buy your batteries, end of story. Well, as you've seen, this kind of hasn't worked out. Tesla's being in a vertical integrated mode has given it a lot of advantages over competitors. And yes, you can build a gigafactory, but you still have to feed it with lithium and other minerals that just a factory would not have. Hence, Tesla retains an advantage because they're vertically integrated all the way back to mines. So I am sort of stunned by the Ford CEO's mea culpa in terms of them being able to handle Elon Musk. As you may recall, Musk has been very open and willing to offer advice and consulting to many other auto companies. The U.S. auto companies, particularly GM and Ford, had decided to avoid embracing Tesla's assistance, and instead the Mercedes and BMW and Audis of the world embraced Tesla, and their ability to move forward with what they're doing in EVs shows because of that embracing. We also want to note that it's GM and Ford that have led the marketing effort, where there are a ton of Teslas in the greater Detroit area now, but the lobbying of the major auto companies to protect jobs has resulted in there being no place you can buy a Tesla legally in Detroit or in Michigan. So we'll see how this all plays out, but it kind of doesn't make sense for a company like Ford on one hand to be getting an opportunity with Tesla, and on the other hand trying to block them from moving forward by using their lobbying muscle to limit the ability of the company to sell in the country. Very interesting frenemy process. But the funnest part of this whole thing is that every element of partnership, of what Tesla does in terms of vertical integration, are things that are now being embraced by the major autos around the world because they've realized that the old structure is just not working as we move into the EV world for a number of reasons. And so this is kind of fun to watch, and it'll be fun to watch more of the mea culpas popping up as we move on from Ford to, in a backdoor way, what's going on at GM as well. Mary Barra just came out and announced that a 30 to 40K EV is not realistic, that's profitable before the end of the century, whereas Tesla now has a 35K-ish entry-level Model 3 that with incentives, $7,500 from the government, is a $28,000 car. So it really shows the advantage Tesla has over some of these OEMs of the past. And we look forward to reporting on what's next for this whole situation, because Bob Lutz isn't saying much, because Tesla's business model is being adopted by all the people who he said would not do so. So stay tuned. We look forward to reviewing further what's going on here on this. We have a Cybertruck show, or semi-truck and Cybertruck show coming up next in a few next couple of days. Thanks for taking time out. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Just au revoir, lehitrod, hoda hafez, zdravície, Russia, ni hao ma, Chinese Kambawa, Japanese. And in Jamaica, we say, Nuff respect, walk good man. Thanks and have a good day, and bye for now.